guys, and welcome back to another episode of In the Loop. Today's guest has an absolutely stacked resume, DJing all over the world in places such as Shanghai, Tokyo, Amsterdam, Paris, Cancun, Marrakech and Mauritius. He also has releases on some of the biggest labels in dance music, Reveal Recordings, Spinnin Records, Generation Smash and Mixmash. Renato S., thanks for joining me on In the Loop.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
How you doing, man? You all right?
All good, all good. And how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Cheers.
I was just going to say, what kind of stuff have you been working on these past few weeks? Have you been working on any productions or anything like that, or?
Yeah, quite some productions. I'm working a lot with Justin Prime at the moment.
Nice.
I signed three new tracks on his sub-label. It's called Future Next.
Yeah.
But he's giving a platform to young, new, upcoming producers because the EDM market, especially big room and progressive, the market is getting really niche. And his label is under Warner Chappell Music. And he's giving young, new, upcoming producers a chance to still be releasing that. So basically, you got two labels, Future Next and Next Chapter. And he's like releasing. So I got three new releases coming up. Some other stuff I've been working on. Just released my last track on Mixmash together with Patrick Moreno, a friend of mine from Poland. So that's going quite crazy with the supports and plays on Spotify and stuff. So yeah, that's about it, man.
Nice. So yeah, like I say, I want to just take you back to the very start. And I want you just to sort of go over your first musical memory.
Yeah, you just told me already a little bit. Yeah, I'm just thinking, man, like, yeah, when I was younger, when I was listening to music, I had a sort of tick, and I was like always like nodding with my head on the music like this. And every time music was on, I was just like this on the couch, like everywhere. In the car, and I was like always like sitting like this. My parents like, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "Oh, I like the music. I like the music." So that's a fun thing to know. And yeah, I think over the years, like my parents put in a lot of music from their generation on. So like a lot of influences from my father, especially from the 60s and 70s, and then from my mother around the 80s, and I grew up in the 90s. So like I got a really wide range of music that I've listened to in the past, and yeah, basically my parents were always listening to music. So yeah, you get it from your parents, So yeah, and then for me, I got a period when I was like, I think 10, 11, 12. I started to listen to like punk rock, like ish. So like to Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit. Also Metallica, so all that kind of genre. And when I was 12, I think I went to my first concert, and that was actually Metallica in the Netherlands.
Oh wow!
It's funny that I'm an EDM DJ now, but so that's like my musical background a little bit.
Okay, yeah. It's funny that because like the music we listened to when we were younger, the first sort of genres we got into. Obviously EDM wasn't a thing back then, 15, 20 years ago or whatever. And it's interesting speaking to people like back then when I was younger, I used to listen to like a lot of rap music, like 50 Cent, Akon and like all that stuff. And I go through some of the old music I used to listen to and I go, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
How could I have listened to that kind of stuff back then? But it's interesting how we go from listening to those genres to the music that we're into now. So what would you say? When was that first moment where you started listening to dance music? Was it maybe an old trance track or old dance music? What was it?
Well, when it's really I went like when I was like 14, 15. The age in the Netherlands to go out was 16 years old. So by 16 you could have like drink beers already in the Netherlands. and I was like quite a young student. So my friends were like all 16, 17, and I was like 14, 15-ish,
Hmm.
and they already went out. So I sneaked out as well and went also to the club. Around that time, I was like kind of listening to what the cool kids around that time listened to. So they had some like we around that time we had like jump style in the Netherlands,
Uh-huh.
and that was a really big thing, and they were all jumping. And around this time, you had like I still remember you had like jump style, hard style, and like really they called dirty house.
Yeah, yeah.
Like yeah, and around like 1 or 2 years later, all the EDM music started to really come.
Hmm.
When I was 16, 17, I used to go to beach parties for a couple thousand people. I remember this one song particularly. It was from Congo Rock, Babylon.
Okay.
And this track, like a really heavy bass with like big percussions in it. You should look it up.
Yeah.
And I remember walking on the beach party, 16, 17 years old with a shirt like this, and that track came on, and like it was like a little bit before the drop, but the drop hit it, and I don't know if the sound system was so massive, but I was like, whoa! I was listening. After I went to the DJ, like I want to know what this track is,
Hmm.
and then I looked it up back home, and still when I listened to it, because I think David Guetta like 10 years ago played it on Tomorrowland on the main stage too, and like, anyways, this is quite a big track. And then I had like another one from Laidback Luke, who really kept with me, and then around the time I had a friend of mine, and he started doing events,
Mhm.
and it was like quite local, and it was like for a couple hundred people or whatever in a club nearby my place where I live. And then basically they had a lack of DJs because back then it also wasn't. We were not playing with vinyl, but it was like with the CDs.
Mhm.
So yeah, you were making CDs and basically that. So it was still before the USBs, and they had a lack of DJs because now everyone wants to be a DJ, and it's quite popular to become a DJ. And he was basically telling me, yeah, would you like to play for free and get some drinks and whatever? I was like, yeah, why not, man? So he gave me some CDs. He had his own Pioneer set, and
Mhm.
he borrowed it to me. And at that time, I really couldn't care about DJing. I actually thought, look at me, I'm getting some free drinks. Basically, I got my night sorted out, and I was like 17, 18 around the time. And then, yeah, then I think after 1 or 2 years, I did that. Well, maybe a little longer, but after 2 years, yeah, it's a long time. But I wasn't really serious beforehand, and after 2 years, all of a sudden, I understood it. I don't know if it was because I didn't care that much, or but something sort of snapped, and all of a sudden, I understood the counting of the music, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then like this kind of stuff. All of a sudden, it all made sense. So I knew all of a sudden. I knew how to mix, but it was like so systematical, if I'm saying that correct.
Mhm.
But then all of a sudden, like I understood how the music worked, um, and then a short period over that, I had a international booking for the first time in Morocco, and then I went there, and they were paying me quite some nice money. My flight was covered, 5-star hotel, nice pickup, bottles in the club. And, I went from playing for free or like for 50 euros to a good paid gig overseas in Morocco.
Mhm.
And then I was thinking by myself, if I'm gonna do this more seriously,
Yeah.
I can actually make good money with it. So I also kept believing that the more serious I became with working on my music, with my contacts, with my network, that I could do it and get a good paid job for a couple of years, see something of the world, and that's basically how it all came together. So.
Wow. Jeez. Yeah, that's it's great crazy that at such a young age you were getting into it on that level. At
Mhm,
that time when when you were 16 and you started going out and
mhm.
whatnot, was the sort of punk and rock stuff still an influence on your taste, or had you pretty much shifted over to dance music?
Well, when I really started DJing, I really liked back then in the Netherlands. This was quite popular, like a little bit Latin tribal house. And
Hmm.
there were a couple of DJs. I don't know if you know them. Gregor Salto is definitely the main one.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I was, and we had a couple others. Another one is Stefan Vilain.
Hmm.
So this is like there was like a group of guys, and this was like all this tribal. So basically, house with drums in it to
Yeah,
make it
yeah.
really easy. Um, and I was really influenced by it because I don't know why, but yeah, I really like the type of music. And I don't know why, but I started looking at those guys particularly, and I saw that if I wanted to do that as well, that my market was like in Portugal, in Morocco, Mauritius, like these kind of countries, like where there's a beach, where there's beach parties, whatever.
Mm.
Um, and then I really started to focusing and shifting towards that. And there were like a lot of people surrounding me who were making similar music in the Netherlands. Also, a couple big names that I'm not going to mention, but you can probably look on the internet before they got famous. Some names we were already talking about before, but they actually made like a lot of this stuff as well. So I was like with all groups of people, and they
Hmm.
were all making this kind of music. So it was really easy for me to also learn something from them, take something from it, and kind of find my own way in that. So for years, I really played a lot of Latin house, tribal house, even some Afro house. Not the kind of stuff that Black Coffee is doing,
Hmm.
because I feel like this is more like deep Afro house, but more like energetic between 126 and 128 BPM. A lot of drums, a lot of snares, and yeah. So I did this for yeah, I think till I was 24, 25.
Okay.
And then I saw a lot of potential in the market in Asia, and then I was looking what they were doing because I wanted to do the same. I wanted to travel overseas, wanted to get paid, wanted to do like a nice tour, travel through Asia, see something of the world. And then I saw like that the thing what I was doing with the Latin and tribal house was just for a couple countries. And back then, even after the period of time, it wasn't that popular anymore in the Netherlands as well. So yeah, then my taste kind of shifted as well, and then I just started to go full on EDM and this kind of music. EDM, big room, progressive, a lot of mashups, like more commercial. So yeah.
And would you say the sort of music that you were first listening to, you know, the punk rock stuff, has an influence on your producing today?
Maybe more on my track choices, so
Hmm.
the music that I'm playing, because you know when I hear like a mashup of Linkin Park, like in the end or whatever, then I'm like always like yeah, like it's just putting it out there. So definitely, obviously, first check the vibe on a party or whatever, and see what I can play. But I would say maybe not so much my production because I'm not like using heavy guitars. Maybe through the bass sounds and stuff because some of my productions they're quite heavy.
Hmm.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you could say so both as production wise as in my taste. I
Hmm.
would definitely, yeah. So,
And do you think you've kind of found your footing? Do you think the stuff that you're making now is what you would
mm,
like to produce going forwards?
you know, it's really tough, man. Like, yeah, I don't know if you want me to go in detail a lot with this, but yeah, yeah, it's just really tough because it's really hard and difficult, I think, to create something totally new that isn't there and that you really like, but for other people to like it. Because usually when something becomes commercial or it's easy to listen to,
Hmm.
so you got all these like niche, like I have, for example, house music is really popular right now again. You got tech house like James Hype, obviously Fisher, like those kind of influences are really strong at the moment. And you see like big room and progressive is like sort of it will come back again because W and all those guys like they're doing a great job, and it is still there. But it's really difficult if you don't really have a name to make something that you really like, to have other people liking it as well, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. It's a funny one because like I noticed over the past 2 years,
Hmm.
as obviously all the clubs shut, there hadn't been
Hmm.
any major festivals. I mean,
Hmm.
thankfully last year there was Creamfields here in the UK, and I
Hmm.
got to go to that,
Hmm.
and the atmosphere there was incredible because that was like the first big festival that had happened in the world since basically
Hmm.
2019, and
Yeah, I think I remember that, seeing that.
the
Yeah.
vibes were incredible. Like it was Nicky Romero, David Guetta, Tiesto. It was all their first big
Hmm.
event back kind of thing, and they
Hmm.
really went for it. And the
Hmm.
energy from that is incredible. But I
Nice.
noticed there's that labels, DJs, the biggest guys. It's all
Hmm.
affected the way that not only guys produce, but also what they play out, because you can't. It's difficult to release big room and all this high
Yeah.
energy stuff, progressive house and things like that when
Yeah.
everyone's sat at home in their bedrooms.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. So a lot of guys didn't really release club music,
Mm,
and then on top of that, you got that the labels are really picky with what they're releasing,
yeah.
and a lot of labels, like when you release in a certain market, like me, for example, with my big room and bass house, whatever I'm doing now, it's just like a handful of labels that will actually sign it,
Mm,
and yeah, it's just like the choice is so like small for looking for the right label and actually being able to sign it,
mm,
because the thing is, you got like a lot of these islands now, like these groups, like you got Martin Garrix's group, you got Rave Culture, you got this, that, and to come in there with your music as a upcoming or new producer or whatever, is also really difficult. Like usually they got a group of guys, they're already signed to the label, they making new music, they get signed, they get like the priority.
mm.
Luckily, you see some labels still giving a lot of new upcoming producers a lot of chances, or they're making a sub label so they can still be able to sign. But there is just a lot of things, especially during COVID, that changed the market, and yeah, and now it's even important to make a track that's catchy for TikTok, like whatever, like you say it. So then I come in with my heavy bass house big room shit,
Mm.
like no one is really waiting for it. It works in the clubs or on a festival, but people rather have some, yeah, sorry for saying it, shittier music than sit at home and listen or whatever, than actually listen to that kind of music on their own.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed it's coming back
Mhm.
slowly, like these past few
Mhm.
months, but
Mhm.
particularly like last year, a lot of the stuff that I like to play in like my mixes and
Mhm.
things like that is, big room. That's what I fell
Mhm.
in love with a long time ago.
Mhm.
I got into dance music when I was 11.
Mhm.
Listening to trance initially, and then like Tiesto
Mhm.
Club Live Volume One, Revealed Volume One, and these kind of really influenced me. But yeah, like I say,
Mhm. Cool.
it was difficult to find anything that you could kind of basically. I have certain places that I go to, whether it be YouTube, Beatport, whatever, and I
Mhm.
look on certain channels and certain places for new music each week to kind of put into my sets. And
Mhm.
particularly like towards the end of last year, not much big
Mhm.
room and things like that being made, and
Mhm.
it was everywhere that I'd usually look, there wasn't much coming out, if anything at all. And I was like,
Yeah, yeah,
shit, I'm having to look in different areas and change my
yeah,
style
yeah,
slightly to the places that are releasing,
yeah.
and it's difficult. But I think obviously this weekend as we're recording, it's the
Mhm.
weekend of Ultra Miami. It's one of the biggest
Yeah,
events of the year. It's the first time
yeah,
it's happened in a few years now, and I think it's gonna help bring back a lot of stuff that
yeah,
we like, the main stage music, particularly with the
yeah.
return of someone tonight on Sunday night, Hardwell.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure, for sure.
you know, but
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I totally get it. No, you're totally right about that, man. It's yeah, it's crazy because there's been released so much music and there's so much producers out there now. And but the music that like I was scrolling through the list as well. I'm just like nah, I don't like this, I don't like that. Like it was really tough because I made quite some mixes for the radios and got invited to do some guest mixes here and there. But still, like as you said, like a couple months ago, it's still tough to find like the music you're actually looking for.
Mm.
So yeah, it's as you said, finally it's slowly getting better because if you just look at the market right now, especially Europe and in the US, it's like it's booming right now. Like everyone's schedules are filled up again, so people DJs need new music to play, obviously.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think as you said, it's definitely coming back.
Hmm. I want to sort of ask you how you
Mhm.
see yourself. Do you see yourself as a DJ first and a producer, or a producer who also DJs?
Uh, well, I've been a DJ first, but then I learned producing because I felt like I had to. Lately, I'm just gonna state it here. I'm producing a lot less because I feel like my focus isn't really on making that much music anymore. I'm making music, but I have people around me. I won't say ghost producers, but definitely people around me. Like I make an idea and send it out to them, and we finish it together, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not shy about it.
Yeah, yeah.
There has come one certain point, like 4 or 5 years ago, that I understood that there were a lot of people better than me with producing, and that I was good with my marketing
Hmm.
and basically selling myself. So I shifted my focus more towards that. I'm still producing. I'm still using Ableton. I'm still making stuff. But I got some people around me who helping me with it. But I just understood at one point that my thing where I was good in was talking to people and selling myself and getting shows. Because yeah, you've seen the things that I've done, and I haven't had a manager anytime. Everything that I
Crazy
did
that.
myself. Yeah,
Crazy.
so I've been, and the ways I did it, it's like, man, like we will talk about this later, but the ways I've opened some doors for myself it's always been in a good way. Like I never, sorry for my language, I never fucked anyone over.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I always thought what I was did was right.
Hmm.
But yeah, there just came a point a couple of years ago that I just knew. And on top of that, to come back on your question, I definitely see myself more as a DJ and also as an entertainer
Yeah.
because I believe that I definitely give what the people want.
Hmm.
Because of my resume and the residencies I had, especially in Bangkok, like I had 2 nights a week. I was playing at Insanity, the place where I was doing the bookings. I was marketing and managing. That like every night we had like around 1,000 tourists, and you have like a crowd from all over the world. So yeah, how you gonna please the crowd? What
Mm.
kind of music you gonna play?
Mm.
So I was definitely trying things, but you have to play like a super commercial set.
Mm.
So it was like a blend of what the people liked and a blend of what I liked. Basically, a lot of mashups, remixes, bootlegs, whatever. And I kind of find my way that even when I'm playing a place that doesn't really allow EDM music with my set, because it's so commercial, they still kind of accept it and they actually do really like it.
Mhm.
Because since I came back in the Netherlands, I came back with my set and with my music, and I had a couple shows here in the Netherlands, and they were telling me because here in the Netherlands we got really like a weird music culture. We got a lot of Moombaton
Mhm.
and like a lot of Dutch rap music, and this is super popular in the clubs. Like it's like sort of reggaeton-ish, like a low like dun, 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 like this kind of vibe. And they booked me in the clubs and they said, "Ah, you have to play that too." So I was like, just checking a little bit, and I started to play louder, and then all my mashups and all the things that I like, personal mashups that I made and whatever, and the whole fucking club was jumping, and then like the booker was like looking at me, he said, "Yeah, okay, yeah," they didn't want me, they didn't want me to give me too much credit, but they were
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, like yeah." Well, it was good. It was good like this, you know. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know I did a good job, and this happened like the last couple months several times that I was playing in a couple clubs in the Netherlands, and basically they all told me up front like, be careful with EDM, and I was still managing to play like a 1 hour set or 90 minutes, and some of them even came after my set like, oh, you can just continue, man, like enjoy. We get you an extra bottle or get you a little bit extra fee, whatever. But if you want to play, you can play some more. So that's always a good sign. But I think because of I played so many countries and the experience, like I really did a lot of club shows. I've been resident in a lot of clubs, you know, and I've played in bars for like 200 people, like way back, and there were like 10 other bars like in the same circle, and it was a competition. And there was like a thing in the Netherlands, or in that area. After one, the people couldn't come in anymore. So whatever you had in the bar or in the club, whatever what was in, that was what you would have for over the night, you know,
Mm.
because they couldn't allow people to enter anymore. So I was like literally like playing with that because I saw girls walking, people coming in, whatever, and I was like just constantly looking at the door, like are people walking out? So I was just like trying every week, like okay, this is the music they like. I need to play more of this. And after a couple of weeks, I had every week that I played the place full with people, you know. And then the owner came to me and he wanted to give me more days. He said, "Oh man, you're like not to talk big about myself, but it's like you're the only guy we're booking and is actually doing what the people like. And yeah, we want to give you all the days if you're available." So yeah, that was a fun thing, but that definitely learned and helped me a lot about yeah, I think music knowledge and because like a lot of things that I learned back then, I've seen that are really important nowadays as well. Like I got a sort of formula for myself. Whenever girls are dancing, the guys are dancing too,
Mhm.
which is usually always a thing.
Mm.
Unless you're going to a rave, there's a lot of guys, whatever. It doesn't really make sense, or underground techno party or whatever. But you know, if you got the girls dancing, usually the guys dancing as well. Then everyone has a good time. Then you have to think like, is the club actually selling drinks? Like, am I not playing too much commercial things? So you know, I play one, two, maybe three good tracks, and then basically actually a shit track. So
Yeah,
people go to the bar, go to the toilet. So I keep all these things in mind, and I think that makes me a good DJ, and that puts me like a little bit with my experience and my knowledge more than others. So yeah, for that reason, definitely see myself more as a DJ than a producer.
yeah, yeah. That what you said there kind of resonates with me. That's kind of how I feel
Mhm,
about myself. Like,
mhm.
you know,
Oh, nice.
I'm not one of these guys like you see, you know, Martin Garrix in the young days, Hardwell in the young days, all of these guys that, you know, when they were 5 years old, they're playing on piano and they're producing
Yeah,
tracks
no.
at 10. That is
Yeah,
me. Me, I've come from being a fan of the music, you know,
yeah.
watching these guys when I was a young
Mhm,
teenager, and then you know, through high school, and then as I became old enough to go out when I was 18 in this country, I was able to go to more raves, and the more I went, the more I fell in love, and it just kept going and going, and I
mhm,
became a big fan of all these guys, and
mhm.
I always used to just think I'd love just to be able to play all the stuff that they do for myself.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember, you know, particularly when I play at Ministry of Sound, when I got to
Mhm,
play the big gig that I played in the main room. And
mhm,
that main room can hold something like 16, 1700 people. The sound system has been created by Dolby Atmos. Dolby
mhm.
Atmos came in a
Crazy.
few years ago. It's the craziest sound system you've ever heard. Like, I've been to Tomorrowland twice, the main stage.
Mhm,
That's something. And obviously it's Tomorrowland.
mhm,
The sound is insane. But I've never
mhm.
heard anything like the main room at Ministry of Sound. The how heavy the bass is, everything inside you shaking, but the sound is still so clear. It's
Ah,
unbelievable.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And you know, all the effects and everything that they have going on there, it's a crazy thing to experience. uh,
Yeah, I can imagine.
if you're in any way a dance music fan, you have to experience that place. but I remember always being like, wow, looking at these guys. And then when I got to be up there myself playing down to that crowd, there's no feeling like it on earth. That it's when you're playing your favorite tracks, the tracks that really make you go, you know, give you that dirty face, and you're able to play to these people. Particularly, you know, the thing I always love the most is when you've got the secret tracks that not many people have heard. You know, it's only on YouTube, but you know this is heavy.
I love that shit, man.
Nothing. Honestly, there's no feeling like it. So I come from the same sort of that's where I've come from, the same sort of thing as you.
Cool.
And you know, I've kind of always thought about it, and you know, whether I need to, because the next kind of thing that I want to go on to with you is, do you need to produce to be successful as a DJ?
I used to believe so, but I don't think you need to do that anymore. It can definitely make a difference, but I think nowadays marketing is really key, because, you know, just to give you an example, there is a lot of top 100 DJs nowadays. They got like their own little bit of style. I think you mentioned Mike Williams before. His last releases definitely had like the same kind of thing. So they're releasing club music in their own. Another good one to mention is Julian Jordan. Like, he got like this bass house thing that's really sort of recognizable, that's his sound. I think eventually this becomes important, but you definitely don't need to be producing to become successful. I think it's just one element of many elements that it all sort of combines and comes together. Like, oh, like you got your own sound, your marketing is on point, you're with the right people. Like, it's a combination of everything what you're doing that makes it successful. So yeah, maybe for you it doesn't make you look a little bit confused. It's like
no. It's interesting to hear that, because you're the first person to say that.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Because don't get me wrong. You know, I've spoke to quite a few different guys, but a lot of people say, you know, you have to produce if you're going to get anywhere. You look at all these guys up at the top, and they all have tracks out.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So I think at one point you definitely should be producing, but now there are different ways to reach your end goal. Obviously nowadays you can get a ghost producer as well, but I really believe, like, if you start, maybe for example, look at me. For me, when I started DJing, the producing part came later, because I felt like I really had to. I think nowadays it's important to at one point have your own style and create something, but to actually have shows, I think it's like really now, like, you marketing is yeah. Oh man, there are gonna be a lot of people mad at me, I think, for saying this, but I think marketing nowadays is almost more important than producing.
Yeah.
So sorry for everyone that's looking.
I tell you what, I agree. I completely agree with you, because the what I always say is what you've just said then, and most people I speak to, I end up having to not argue with, but I'm the person disagreeing with them, because I've always thought that if you're not going to be producing, if you're not going to be releasing tracks, you need to have something that can sell you. You need to be unique. Because I always go back to a few different examples. Like, if you go to, say, you know, Tomorrowland main stage, Salvatore Ganacci, no one's going there because they've heard his latest track and they really want to hear it. They're going there to see this mad guy go mad.
No this is marketing. Listen, this is a great example, and I love to have this discussion with you. Look at Steve Aoki. Where was he known for fucking throwing cakes on people?
Yeah.
What Timmy Trumpet? Like I love the guy, man. He got great sets. There's maybe one or two tracks that are really known for him. Or what is he known for? Da-da-da-da-da. So
Yeah.
I believe like maybe, and besides that, if you're not a producer, but your father is Chesto, or your uncle is the manager from Anna agency, or whatever kind of big booking agency there is,
Mm.
you're gonna get shows. You
Mm.
don't need productions for that, and you can like I don't know a lot of people that are famous and don't have productions, but to come back on your point, I think you could definitely have a good music career and definitely have a lot of shows without having any productions.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, because it's
So,
funny that there's you know, there's different levels. Obviously, there's guys
mhm,
that I always like to, when I'm looking for new music for my mixes, I like
mhm,
to, if I can, you know, not
mhm,
just play a new W&W track, a new Blaster Jack track, tracks that most of the people I play to are going to know, you know, because they would
yeah,
have heard it on a different radio station or whatever. I want to find those tracks where there's a guy with 100 followers and no profile picture on Instagram that's
mhm,
linked to it, and it's just
yeah,
this
yeah,
crazy track.
yeah,
He's
great, yeah, yeah, yeah,
unbelievably talented producer, but
yeah,
he's maybe not so good online.
yeah,
You know, and like you say, a lot of those guys are out there and no one knows about them because they're very good at doing the producing.
yeah.
They're just not that good about telling people about it.
Yeah. There is one thing that I've noticed though, because I did the bookings for Insanity for like several years. Um, you know, to be honest, there when you book some guys, there is really guys that are they don't have like also like these is like a lot of things I look at when I book someone.
Mm.
If you see that someone doesn't have a lot of shows, they usually don't got the experience. They don't know really what to play. Sometimes stuff can go really well, but it happened a couple times that a guy comes. I'm not gonna mention any names, but I booked a guy once, and he was just looking at the Pioneer set, and he said he was looking at it, and he looked at me, and I'm like looking really confused because we were doing the sound check. And he was looking at the set again, and he looked at me, and he said, "Yeah, Renato, uh, I never really played on this set before. It was just like four decks, right, with a mixer." He said he never played on something like that. But he had that night he had a show, and I booked him because I thought he was really talented producer, and he had some shows, but he played some. Yeah, he played on some controllers and stuff.
Mm.
And I was just standing there like, what the fuck? Like, you need to play tonight. Like, man, like, obviously I've seen his resume before. I booked him, whatever, and seen that he did some shows. But he was like used to playing on controllers and like other
Mm.
kind of equipment. So luckily, it's a nice story. But luckily, he knew some basic stuff. He knew how to mix. But yeah, obviously, I was just like wow, man, like. And then another thing, wasn't this guy? This guy actually did a great job. He played like good tracks because he listened a lot to my feedback. Because a lot sometimes guys ask like whenever they came over to Bangkok, like what works in this club,
Mm.
and then I actually liked it to give them the feedback. I'm like, you can play some hardstyle, you can play some side trends, but just a couple tracks, then go back. You can even play tech house or whatever. Just don't play techno. Like so, I gave them a range, and they're free to do whatever they want as long as they keep looking at the crowd. But then there's guys that don't have any stage performance, guys that don't use the microphone, guys that only play their own stuff and have like so that they made some production. They're super good producers, but sometimes if you play like 5 tracks of your own that aren't really mashups, the crowd can kind of bored, and they don't know else what to do. They're just playing their own shit, and they're expecting people to like it. And this is like a thing what I really look at these days. Like I really respect it if people put a lot of effort in the set, and there is obviously definitely places to probably perform your set, but
Mm.
you still need to entertain the crowd. And if after 5 tracks or 10 tracks you see that people like don't feel it anymore, you need to change it
Mm.
because you're there to entertain the people as a DJ, I believe. So there's a really like, yeah, it's kind of tough to say because there is obviously a lot of DJs and producers. They think they're on a certain level, and they're like, oh, I come here because like I'm the big guy and I'm gonna just do my set and whatever. And yeah, I've been disappointed quite sometimes in some DJs that I booked too, and I was like, yeah, and they were asking me like, oh, did you like it? And I was just straight up because I'm quite a straightforward person. I said, nah, man, I didn't feel it. I let them do what they do. Like I give them the like I don't want to be the guy after 30 minutes say like, oh, we need to stop because usually when I book them, I give them like a 90-minute slot or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, if you're asking me for my feedback, and I'm gonna be honest with you. So I told him, yeah, and then all of a sudden I'm the bad guy again. But I'd rather be honest with people and say like that. I think you should have seen it too that the people didn't enjoy your music, and I really think that I'm a fair person, and I give the people a lot of space to move in. But yeah, if you fuck it up then, and especially with like quite a commercial crowd, then I'm just guessing like, like what are you doing?
Yeah.
So.
It's funny because there's a saying that my friend has said to me before: "Never trust a DJ that doesn't dance." And it's like,
Yeah.
Interesting, because
Yeah. Obviously, because what you just told me is like whenever you're looking for music, and you get that crunchy face, and like, you're gonna stand like, and you get that energy, and I really believe that if especially I grab the mic and 1, 2. 1, 2, you're gonna hype up the place, and people gonna go, like even if they don't like the track, they still feel your energy, and I really feel like, I had obviously days when I had a residency that I was hangover, and you come at the club and you're like a little bit like this, and you don't have much energy, and you really I feel like portray that on the crowd you're playing for. If you're just standing there, you're standing for 1,000 people, and he's just standing in front of the decks and a little bit like this. And yeah, I really believe in energy and like stage performance, grabbing the microphone. Even if your if your set is totally shit, and you grab the microphone and you're just jumping around, people probably gonna still enjoy. Yeah. So, but yeah, I know you have a lot of producers in your videos as well that you're probably talking with, and they probably would say a total different thing than mine. But as I said before, I've did my own bookings for the last 10, 12 years. I've played in 30 countries. And yeah, I rather have people talking after my set like, oh, that show was amazing, and they really enjoy themselves. They go home with a smile, than standing there and doing something that I like and they not maybe like. So yeah, it's tough to find a sort of line or a balance in there, I think. But as a DJ, you should always entertain the crowd. And once you're not an Afrojack or a Martin Garrix, I believe that people don't give a shit about who you are. You might have some fans here, maybe in Asia, a couple, a handful of people that really like your music. But until you're not on that point, I feel like I always need to prove myself. And then I rather, as I said, have people enjoy themselves, have a good time, smile on the faces, and then also with the aspect of like making sure that people are buying some drinks. Sometimes when I play in a club and I'm DJing and I see like the sparklers coming out, bottles of champagne, I know the club is making money. So I'm happy that I'm able like to I've cut off the music. Shout out to the people on the VIP. Shout out to the people on the dance floor. I make everyone fucking crazy, but I really believe this adds something extra to my set.
Yeah.
So,
it's funny because obviously the way that I heard about you and who you are was with your track Ragnarok.
nice.
The release of that and oh man, I played it in my set. I love that track. It's heavy.
I think you made those videos, right? That you like jumping crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it all makes sense. I'm sorry, I didn't even know that, man. I'm like, yeah, because I think you tagged me one time in a video where you were jumping crazy.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, okay, that's funny.
That's what I'm known as, that guy who goes crazy and jumps to all the tracks and things like that.
Okay, that's cool, man. Okay, then now like I'm just okay. That's funny. That's how I know you.
Yeah. That's it. But yeah, like I said, obviously I know you,
Mm,
and how I found out about you was through your
mm,
producing and your tracks.
yeah.
But as I've discovered, looking into you a bit more, and your background, how much experience you've got in DJing and being in different
Mm,
clubs, different environments all around the world.
mhm.
And in that time, I can imagine you've seen some shit. You've seen some
Yeah, yeah.
crazy things. So like, being down at ministry taught me a lot. Not only when I was a fan there, going as a raver, and
Mhm.
certain things I would see where I'd be like, what? But then going there as a DJ, understanding what's
Mm,
actually going on behind the decks,
yeah,
and yeah, there was definitely some things that made me go, what the fuck? Like,
yeah,
I imagine you've maybe seen it, but there's been a few guys that I can think of where I've gone behind the deck for a minute, and they're not doing anything, and they're literally, they're doing that, they're not fucking doing anything to it, and they're just playing
yeah,
it. It's like a
yeah,
pre-recorded set or whatever, and they're
yeah,
just playing it, and it's so cringy to look at when they're basically
yeah,
up there acting, and it's like,
yeah,
what?
yeah,
I had a friend of
yeah.
mine tell me once. I won't say who the
Mm,
guy is. I'll tell you later on. But this friend of mine, yeah, I trust him, and he's done a lot of gigs over the years, and he's supported
mm,
some big DJs. And he told me that one
mhm,
time he was playing on this gig, and a big
mhm,
headline DJ,
mhm.
plays at Tomorrowland and whatnot. Uh, when this guy was on stage, apparently he wasn't actually doing anything, and down below on the floor there was a guy sitting there with a controller on his lap doing it.
Wow, really? Oh, that's messed up, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I got a couple stories for you too, but
Yeah, I want to hear them, man. Tell me.
yeah, yeah. Well, I heard from some big bookers in Asia. Like we were talking because um, I was touring with Rave Republic one time in China, or
Mhm.
well, not really touring, but we had a show together, and this was the opening of a new club. I'm not gonna mention any names because otherwise I don't know who knows who, whatever, and I don't want to gossip
Yeah, of course.
too much about other people. But yeah, we were talking about weird requests. The reason why I mentioned Rave Republic, those guys are super nice, super down to earth,
Mm.
and there were some problems in the club. Like the set was kind of old,
Mhm.
some buttons didn't work, and nowadays, especially if you're working with bigger artists, the bookers, the managers, the tour managers, they're gonna complain and say like, "Oh, we're not playing this set because." I totally believe that this is the responsibility of a club to make sure that everything works properly. I
Definitely.
totally agree with that, but you will come some places in the world like I've been in some places, man, like things weren't that great. Let's say that, and there were people that they came for me, and so you can do two things. You say like, "Oh, this is shit. I'm not gonna play," or you try to make the best of it for the people.
Mm.
And they were like super down to earth, Rave Republic, and then one of the bookers mentioned like, "Oh, you guys are so nice, and we're so happy that these things aren't really a problem." And then they started mentioning about some guys that they've booked in the past, and they had like the weirdest fucking requests ever. Like they were calling, like a tour manager calling 5 a.m. in the morning because he wanted PlayStation 4 for his artist at 5 a.m. in the morning. Like man, you're on a tour like in China or whatever. And I'm like this kind of like stuff, man. And it gets me actually really angry because they actually ask for so much already. And I've seen the writers. I've seen also the writers from the big artists. And what they're asking is actually like ridiculous. Like it's like, man, like, and the reason like I don't want to make an example out of myself, but I believe with a little bit humility, and if I'm saying it right, humility,
Mhm. Yeah,
humanity,
yeah,
and like respect towards each other, you can come a really long way. And like having a sort of understanding and giving a. I actually still feel nowadays uncomfortable with giving a rider to a booker.
mhm.
They're like send your rider, and I'm like, yeah, I got one, but I tell them straight up, like, what drinks you have? Yeah, we got everything. Just send your rider. So no, like I'm comfortable if you give me a bottle of vodka, and in some clubs, a premium vodka is too expensive, so they give a cheaper one. That's fine by me, man. I don't need to have that Belvedere or the Grey Goose or whatever to
Mm.
look cool on the gram or whatever. No, man.
Yeah,
I drink the shitty vodka too. Like I'm trying to find a way to make it work for everyone.
yeah.
Like why do I need 10 bottles of champagne on my rider? Why do I need to have fucking gummy bears or M&M on my rider? So
I heard someone. Sorry, I'll just say quickly. I don't know if it was just an excuse, but somebody,
Mhm,
I can't remember if it's a big DJ,
mhm,
but somebody quite big. Apparently,
mhm.
they request when they get to the green room that there's a bowl of, I think, only green gummy bears, and
Oh yeah.
supposedly it's like number 20 down on the list, and they say it's to prove that the guys have read the list, supposedly.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I've heard it too. I heard it with blue M&Ms,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, man. No, I think it's just ridiculous, man. I had an artist once who came from an agency or a bookings agent that I'm not gonna mention,
Mhm.
but they refused to take a car like the transport, like the pickup, like less than a BMW or Audi or a Mercedes. So like there is like a super nice van, probably more expensive than a car from Mercedes,
Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah.
screens inside, with everything the guy needs, and they refuse to take that van. Like, and this shit gets me so angry. Like, and I feel like nowadays a lot of DJs and people are too much in it for the money,
Mm,
and the whole respect and the whole thing of like actually working hard to getting to a point that you actually deserve it.
mm,
That like that whole thing is gone. Especially I feel like with new generation producers, that
mm.
man, I've got some guys, a guy I never heard of, and he had one release with a top 100 guy on Spinning Records, and he contacted me if he could play in Bangkok, and he was asking for such a ridiculous fee, and then with two flights from Amsterdam, 5-star hotels, and all that shit. I never heard of the guy, and then I looked at his resume, and this guy or this kid, he played like 10 shows total, so doesn't get any stage experience. And then what's he's gonna do? He's coming there and he's gonna jump for an hour. And yeah, man, yeah. So I've seen, heard, and experienced some crazy shit already with people. And I truly believe, as I said, with a little bit of humility and respect towards other people, and seeing what they can give you. Obviously, I've played in India before. Um, and India is different than Shanghai,
Mhm,
or it's different than Las Vegas or Miami.
mhm.
So and why would you yeah, this is something like that always kind of stick with me. Like, why would you do there as well, like with 10 bottles of champagne, and you wouldn't do it elsewhere? So
Mm.
why ask it in the first place?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I believe relationships and everything is so important. For me, I want a DJ. I think I ask a reasonable fee. I think I'm a reasonable or okay DJ, if I may say it. I definitely won't say I'm the best DJ, but I think I'll do a good set. I just want to make it work with a booker. So I always discuss, maybe for some people this is unprofessional, whatever, because also it's me talking and not a manager. I'm the one who's having again 30, 35 shows this whole summer and have a huge summer schedule. I'm
Mm,
doing my own bookings. So I think, I don't blame the people that have a booker. I don't blame the people who are doing something different. I think, yeah, this is what works for me, and that probably works for them. But as I said, I think just respect goes a long way. And for me, I'm really really fair, I think. And I just ask a book, okay, what can we do? Like some space to negotiate, you know. And obviously there is a limit, and you know, there are some places that you don't want to be in a 1 or 2 star hotel. Definitely overseas, maybe sometimes because you know it's just not clean. But for me, you know, I want a clean bed. Obviously, I want to shower, but per se having a 5 star hotel, yeah, man, I don't care if it's 4 or 3 stars either. As
Yeah.
long as it's clean, I can sleep. I can do my work and have some beers in my hotel after the show. I'm all good. So yeah, and I think being reasonable these days, it's like and the respect from people towards each other. Yeah, it's just uh, yeah,
Yeah.
that gets me a little bit yeah, angry and upset, to be honest. So
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine that you've probably, you know, experienced and seen your fair share of guys that maybe have too big an ego and they kind of want to throw their weight around and
yeah,
yeah, it's sad when you see that sometimes. You know, in the past, before I was a DJ, when I was just a fan of some of these
mhm,
guys, I've had people, you know, who will stop, speak to me for five
yeah,
minutes, take a photo. You know, I've always said like two of my favorite DJs by far, W and Nicky Romero, and I've met them, you know, a couple times now, and
mhm,
they always stop, you know, take a photo, have a quick conversation with you. They've always
yeah,
been really nice. But there's been
yeah,
some other guys who aren't even on their level, I would say.
yeah. That's the thing. That's the
They
thing. Sorry
they're
for
like, I
interrupting.
don't hear
Yeah,
you know, stay
yeah.
away. I'm with the cool people over here, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah, no, no, no. And I think those kind of people will never make it because they don't understand that little bit of integrity, I think, if I'm saying that correct.
yeah,
And I think that's also a key if we're just talking about marketing, productions. If you miss this, you will never be there. And the thing nowadays is people have 1 or 2 releases on a good label and they getting a sort of ego and a sort of attitude. And then I see how, like as you said, how, because I've seen this before as well with some artists. They got booked to certain places, and even a resident DJ asked, like, "Can I take a picture with you?" And they were like, straight up, like, "No." Like this kind of attitude, I'm like, oh, it really gets me, yeah, man. Like, who the fuck do you think you are?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no, I'm really not down with that, man. And
No.
I've seen by just showing respect to other people and trying to find a way to make it work. And basically, those people are also the people who give you basically your next show. You know, for example, you saw my resume. You saw we mentioned Morocco before, and you know it's typical in a lot of these places. You got like a guy who's sitting at the toilet. I don't know what's the name, like cleaning it all the time. And I remember one of the first times when I was in Morocco, and there was this guy, and he knew my music, and he heard my name, and obviously I was the big artist who came to the place, and he wanted a picture with me, and he was like really shy to come up to me, and me, especially after a couple of drinks, what's up, man? He's like, oh, sir, like, yeah, picture. I said, come, man, come take a picture. You know, I grabbed his phone, make a couple selfies, make a video. I gave him a shout out, you know, or whatever. And I feel like these kind of things, especially because why would I do cool or be nice only to the boss and not to the persons that I'm working for? And the worst thing is, I think a lot of people actually believe that way, that it's not cool or not like, oh, like I don't care about these people. But I think really that makes a huge difference. And I've seen, for example, Armin van Buren, and I know what's on his rider, and it's like just a couple sandwiches, and the alcohol is basically for the people around him, but not for himself, you know. And he's super down to earth. And you know, if you come up to him and ask for a picture, he'll always say yes. And,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like that kind of thing is just, and then you got all those people that are not there, acting
Yeah.
like they're there, and then giving you an attitude and having a big ego.
Mm.
But yeah, you know, I don't want to be the teacher and saying that I know everything. But I think that if you do that, people gonna talk about it in a bad way. and the faster you go up, the faster you go down. So yeah, man. That
Yeah. Thankfully, from what I've experienced, the majority, probably 90%, maybe more, of even the big guys, they are down to earth, and they will
yeah,
stop,
yeah,
unless for whatever reason, they're late or whatever, or something's
mhm.
up. They
Yeah,
will
yeah, yeah,
stop.
yeah.
They will give you that time. I find that usually it's the guys that just started maybe releasing on some of the bigger labels, and they may be like touring with the big guys,
Yeah, yeah.
that they have that kind of,
Having
I'm too good to
ego.
speak to you because you're not in VIP kind of thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I never fully agree when people say don't meet your heroes, because I've met most of mine and they're awesome.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's,
but I do believe
sorry, go ahead.
in the sort of thank you. Like in the community we have, especially in the EDM, I
Mm,
actually think those guys, the ones that I mentioned and that you mentioned,
mm,
are like normal guys,
yeah,
and normal people and understand. And I think they're all really reasonable and fair, and it's also the way how you approach other people, and um, like if you're coming to someone and you're doing something that they not want or whatever, obviously they're not gonna like it. So it's the way you approach people, and yeah, I believe most of those people are down to it, but it's just sad to see that there is like a group sort of hanging under it,
mm,
lifting on the big guys, and then having a sort of ego and whatever. But
yeah,
it's
yeah,
fine.
yeah. No, exactly. Something that's quite interesting talking to you,
Hmm.
and kind of what I know, speaking to different producers, different DJs,
Hmm.
and everything in between.
Hmm.
Most of DJs, producers, whatever, the one thing that they all seem to struggle with, shall we say, is the thing that I think you pride yourself on being good at, the marketing side of things, being able to
Hmm.
sell yourself out there. And like I say, obviously I heard of you in the past year with Ragnarok, and then obviously you've had quite a few releases on these big labels.
Hmm.
How did you get those tracks signed? How did you start progressing with your career? How did that all come about?
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Where shall I begin? Um, well, over the last 3 years, um, for myself, it's funny because we just talked about like not having productions. Can I was actually I had quite some shows. I did quite some tours, but for me to get to a certain level, that it makes sense, or that it made sense that I played some really good clubs, really recognizable festivals. I felt like I needed to improve my music as well, because for that, but that's something that I personally preferred around that time. Again, you can have the right contacts. You can be the son of Armin van Buuren and play on his show in the stadium for 40,000 people, and you probably have shows and can be successful as well. But I felt like for myself, it made more sense to focus more on my music, because like before I really started releasing again, because you kind of see a gap on my Spotify, I think. Before 2016, 2017, I had quite some tribal tracks, also signed on Gregor Salto's label, and I was like more tribal. And then I didn't give it as much as a priority, but in the same time, I started to go full on marketing, and I kind of left my producing. So I came at a point that I had a shitload of contacts, and I could do a lot of shows, but I didn't have any of my own music. And then I kind of created for myself that I had a sort of a stable network, and then I wanted to focus more on music again. And then I obviously set some goals for myself, like okay, I want to track on Maximize, I want to track on Revealed, I want this, I want that. I always write down my goals, like weekly goals, monthly goals, 1 year term goals, 5 year term goals. So they were like all like goals for like within 1 year or so. and then I just I had to find the right people to work with. I had to find the right contacts with the labels, and I just started sending them shit. And I said before that I knew Tom from Blasted Jackson Ear. So you know the story that I've told you before. Um, so then that contact came again, and then I start sending them my demos. And it's actually a funny story because in 2019, um, Tom or Blasted Jackson played at 808 Festival in Bangkok,
Mhm.
and I was already there for a year. And then we're talking, and basically he invited me to come and join him to that show. And I think Zed was playing there that night, and Calvin Harris was playing there the other day, and Skrillex was playing there as one of the biggest, I think, the biggest festival in Bangkok. And that same night, Kashmir was playing there, and yeah, well, it was a really nice festival. And then I was already like working on a lot of productions, and I had a lot of things, and I let him listen to some music that I recently signed before that. So that was around end 2019, around November, December 2019, and I signed quite some new music on Generation Smash and whatever. And I had one track with a guy named Funk D, and this track was Arabica. He was listening to this, and he was like, "Oh man, this will be something cool for Maximize as well." I hear you. Do you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I hear some kind of bleep in my ear.
Yeah,
Maybe
the
the
audio
battery.
went funny for a minute there, but don't worry about it.
Okay, cool. So then I was like, okay, now there is an opening for me to probably send him some similar stuff, and then I made it something a little bit more louder. Ragnarok is more louder, and the other one is more bass house. And then they texted me back and said, "Oh, this would be a nice one for Maximize," and then that was done. So it was signed, it was set, and so now I have some other goals. I want to still want to release some club music. So I got like one or two big room tracks and one or two progressive house tracks, which work really well for the festivals and clubs. And release one or two um, radio kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So that's now also my focus on that to get more streams or whatever and get my name a little bit more out there for the Spotify listeners.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. And what would you say, do you have maybe a tip for the DJs, the producers out there in terms of how to stay motivated?
um, yeah, to be really honest, if you love what you're doing, if you love making music and whatever, just keep doing it. Like the thing I feel like nowadays is there's too much other aspects involved. Like people are looking too much at the money or this, or they think there's people doing it for the wrong reasons. If you genuinely like to make music, then make music.
Yeah.
You're not really worried or bothered about the fact that that it doesn't bring in that much money. Maybe you have to find a day job, and in the nighttime you can produce or whatever. I think they should just keep doing what they do if they really love what they do. If that
Yeah.
makes any sense. So
Yeah. Because like you say, I think sometimes, people find, struggles with certain things. Sometimes they're very good at producing, but maybe not so much at DJing, so they don't really do DJing. Or the other
hmm
way around, they may be really good DJs, but they haven't produced much, and
hmm
they hit a bit of a barrier where they feel like, I need to produce or whatever. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, like I say, it's one of those where I've kind of got to a point where I feel like maybe I could do, some productions and start producing myself. I'm having help from a friend at the moment to kind of produce a few tracks just to help kind of get my name out there.
hmm
But yeah, like you say, I come from the same sort of mindset that you do,
hmm
where ultimately my goal isn't to have a hit record on the radio. my goal is just to play in front of crowds that want to go mad to EDM. That's
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so if you're able to do that, that's super nice. For me, I always told myself I never want to be a famous DJ. I just want to travel, play shows, meet new people. Like my whole kind of mindset was already like it never was the intention to make money. It's
mm,
nice that I'm making money now and I'm making okay money or good money, whatever. But it was never my intention to start this journey to say like, oh, I'm gonna be a DJ because I'm gonna make millions. Like leaves like a lot of space also for negotiating with people because there's so many people stuck at like, oh, you know, I want 5K or I want a five-star hotel. And there's so many people stuck at what they're asking that
yeah,
doesn't leave a lot of space for whatever.
yeah,
And you know, I understand that some clubs have a bigger budget and
mm,
some clubs have a lesser budget.
mm,
And obviously, if you're playing at Tomorrowland, you know it's gonna bring you a lot more shows in the future. So you probably
mm.
do that for less money as well, whatever. So I think that's just really important. What your mindset is shifted to, and what that you're actually doing what you like. And I'm doing what I'm like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, I mean, I've never gotten into DJing and music for the money.
mhm.
You know, I
Yeah, me neither.
away from music, I have my own business, you know, so I'm
Hmm.
financially I'm fine when it comes to, you know, looking after myself. I do music purely for the love of it, and I do DJing for the love of it, and I don't think I'd ever turn down, you know, a gig that I really want to do because it's not a
Hmm.
high enough fee or whatever.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
as
right.
long as it
Yeah,
makes
exactly.
sense and I can be covered with, like you say, travel, hotel, things like that, and I'm not having to do it out of my own pocket, maybe, then yeah, that's
Hmm.
never going to be a big thing where you're like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
I'm going to need a few K more or whatever, you know.
Yeah, so this is, I think, like a really big difference between some people that claim they don't really have shows and they have a lot of productions, and they're like, oh, like I'm not signed with a great management and blah blah blah, and they're usually blaming other people that they don't have shows. Work
Mm,
harder or do some effort yourself. For me, when I was working in Bangkok in Insanity, I loved it when people did the effort to or to make some effort,
mm,
even when they were a certain name. They made the effort to come up. I think that shows a certain kind of respect. And there's
mm,
a lot of guys that feel like, oh, I don't need to do that. I got my manager, I got this, I got that. And there's like no room for negotiation, you know. And for me is I had like 1,000 DJs lined up that wanted to play for me. So I'm not bothered by the fact that I'm not booking you. You should be bothered if you
mm,
want to play at the club that I'm working. But a
mm,
lot of people got like this whole like I think they got it wrong, you know. So
mm.
yeah, and I believe if you truly want to, you still hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I think just one ear just shut off, so I'm gonna put the other one louder, and if you can still hear me, it's not a big
No,
problem.
audio is fine.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, I truly believe that this is actually I'm gonna still plug it in anyways because then I don't hear the other sounds around.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah, there were other guys that they're claiming that they don't have many shows, but I feel like it's also like their own their own attitude towards other people and the way they dealing because yeah, as we just said, like I think they're a certain level and I think they don't need to do that anymore, whatever. Like yeah, I couldn't really be bothered about it, you know. And if you really wanted to come to Bangkok or whatever and do a show and actually play for 1,000 people, there should be some room for negotiating.
yeah.
So because if you really like, you know, the club that I worked, there's always like a lot of people in it, and I know like I gave the guys that came play for me probably weren't the highest fees, but I gave them a lot of footage. I gave them a good promotion. You know, always when they finish the show, the day after, I sent them like 150 pictures or whatever, like a full album with pictures from the show, with stuff they could promote with after the show. Like there's a lot of producers that never went to Asia before and that
Mm,
I booked for the first time there. So yeah, I think that's something special too, you know. And I'm always willing to help other people, but there's a lot of people that they think they bring something to the table, and they think they're a certain level. But you know, at the club where I worked, people really didn't care if it was this guy or that guy who was playing. You know,
mm,
maybe it's the face that is different, or maybe the girls like another guy more than another one, whatever. But the people really didn't care as long as the music was good, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Do you think you can kind of, you know, reach the Tomorrowlands, the ultra main stages and places like that solely on your own? Because I noticed that like guys get to a certain level, obviously it's different for everyone, where maybe they
Mhm.
get 1,000 followers or they get 10,000 or 100,000 or whatever, or they get so many streams on Spotify and then they go, I need help, and they immediately sign to an agency. Do you think you know, everybody must sign to an agency before they can get to the top?
I don't really agree. It's more about knowing the right people, and maybe that's knowing the right agent or the right booker, because obviously, but yeah, I don't want to go into detail that much because that probably would bad for the both of us.
Yeah.
But there has been a lot of side deals made
Hmm.
on all kinds of festivals and events,
Hmm.
especially the bigger ones. And just let's say that you really need to bring something to the table yourself as well.
Mm.
And that can be a lot more than music, if I'm saying that correct.
Yeah.
You have to really have an input or bring something to the table for them to consider to put you on a main stage. That's just my knowledge, and I've seen quite some things happening,
Hmm.
and it's super tough. And yet, of course, it's good to sign at the right agent or the right booker. But I think it's maybe more what you are also doing with your marketing, how your profile looks, what your music is, like all those elements for a booker actually to book you on a main stage or whatever.
Mm.
So
Mm. I think I agree with you. I think some people might look at it as just a sad reality, but I think it is reality nonetheless that marketing has almost become more important nowadays than
yeah,
actually what you produce or even how you are on stage as a DJ. You know,
yeah,
you might not be the guy like Layback Luke who can, you know, spin, you know, and do all these different crazy shit that
yeah,
a lot of us struggle with. But if you can market right, then you can get to the top,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. I
So,
totally agree with you.
you know, I was going to say, we're pretty much nearly at the end of the interview now, but I'd like to end these interviews just by playing a little game. Okay.
Oh shit.
So, the game that I've got for us today is I'm going to say a subgenre of EDM, and all I want you to do is just say the first word that comes to mind. You know, as I say the genre, just the first thing that comes into your head, the first word. It could be a phrase.
Okay.
It could be a phrase, you know, a few words if you wanted to, but if you can, a word. Okay.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Sweet. So, first subgenre, progressive house,
Progressive house, Swedish house mafia.
deep house,
For Oliver Heldens,
big room,
Hardwell, and W&W.
hardstyle,
Oh, Randy,
uh-huh, trance,
Chesto,
psytrance,
Vinny Vici.
bass house. Yeah.
No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. Bass house. Yeah, actually, myself. I think I'm playing quite a lot of bass houses, so I will mention myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Techno.
But techno, Boris Brejcha or Solomon.
Hmm. And just with all these subgenres, what is, you know, what is the feeling that you get when you hear each of them? You know.
You wanna hear a specific thing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like for example, with hardstyle, what does that make you think when you think hardstyle?
Uh, Defcon.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and I've been to that festival when I was 17, 18 years old in the Netherlands. It was already huge by then, but yeah, I cannot go too much in detail because maybe my parents are looking at the interview much. But it was a nice festival, and it was like one of my first festivals. So when I went to DEFCON, it's a part of Q Dance. This was like the first time I was actually standing with 35,000 people, and everyone like ding ding ding. But yeah, that was what it was. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of this kind of music, it was still a really nice experience. And being there with the right people and having a couple drinks and a little bit crazy and yeah, so
No,
it was
for
a cool
sure.
experience.
For sure, man, for sure. Dubstep.
Or Skrillex, yeah. Um, and nowadays, I don't know if it's really dubstep. I listen a lot to Fox Stevenson because I think his productions are really, and he got like a mixture of dubstep and I don't know what the genre is called, but it's quite popular in the UK. It's like a little bit speed up, like 150 BPM, I think.
Drum and bass.
Yeah, it's drum and bass. I think it was quite popular. Yeah, so but he makes like a mix of dubstep and drum and bass. But I really like to listen to because his productions are really really good.
Yeah. Trap.
Snake. And when I think of dubstep and trap, I also think like I used to play in Asia a lot of times, especially in China, and then I would these were like my only sets. Usually, I will play those genres, like those really like Gravedigger, Skrillex, like all these like really 150, 160, sometimes even 170 BPM, and they would fucking love it if I would do that my whole set. So I got good memories regarding to that. So
Absolutely. Happy hardcore.
DJ Paul Elstock. It's been quite popular in the Netherlands. It's still sometimes on the radio or whatever on some radio stations. So that's funny to hear.
Yeah. Well, happy hardcore has always been huge in the UK, particularly with with like Darren Styles.
Okay.
You know, he probably early 2000s. It was huge in the UK, and then it's always kind of been a bit underground. But then Darren Styles has, when he goes on a tour, it kind of comes back up again, and it's always been pretty popular.
Oh, that's nice. Cool.
Probably after drum and bass and dubstep, it's probably been the most popular subgenre alongside house in the UK.
Is dubstep and drum and bass still really popular in the UK?
Not dubstep. Dubstep kind of went away in 2015, something like that. But drum and bass is very popular. I'd say at the moment it's drum and bass and house, deep house, tech house, all that stuff. But there's still a pretty big scene for the big room and progressive and all that sort of stuff. But not as much as I want. We've got to bring more.
Cool.
Tropical house.
Kaigo. Also music festival. I remember that I shared on my page, like I think 4 years ago when he just really came up. He made a track just for the after movie or the sort of pre-movie, and this was like when I hear this track, I don't know what the name is, but when I hear it, I still really love it, and that was like the time that I got to know like tropical house. I actually never played it in my sets, but sometimes when I listen to it, I'm like, okay, cool, this is nice, like nice production, something different than the rest. So yeah.
Melbourne Bounce.
Will Sparks. Yeah, just crazy shit. I remember he shared many videos on his socials every time, like with his long hair, and it was like the crowd were fucking nuts. Yeah. Yeah, funny shit, man.
Finally, Future Rave.
Morton. Morton and Guetta, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You
they
could,
yeah, I think what they're doing is cool. I think it's like a sort of crossover. I think it's getting a bit too much now, to be honest. I feel the style. I understand what they're doing. It's really nice to have that crossover because techno is obviously really popular right now, and there's still like David Guetta comes from like the EDM and everything, so it's a nice sort of crossover. Um, but yeah, I feel like a lot of DJs are copying it too much right now. Well,
mm,
they could easily do nicer, in my opinion, nicer, better stuff, and then they're releasing. And now I feel like it's getting to a point where a lot of these productions all a little bit sound similar, so it's not that interesting anymore.
yeah, yeah,
Personal opinion, though. So.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I'm a big fan of it. I saw
Mhm.
Guetta and Morton at Creamfields this past year. For the first
Mhm.
time, I got to see both of them play like a full Future rave set, and oh, it was
Was
unbelievable.
dope. Was it
I
nice?
love
Yeah.
it, man. I
Yeah.
love it. It's interesting because it does seem to cater to a few different tastes. You know, it has the techno elements
Mhm.
in it, but I like it
Mhm.
for the electro sort of EDM side of it. And it is really good, man. I
Yeah.
love it, man. But yeah,
Yeah,
man.
I think if I would see them play, definitely in a festival and a couple drinks, good vibes, you get that energy. It's totally different than you're listening in your in ears and you download something from Beatport and you're like, yeah, okay, this is cool. So
Yeah,
you get a total different experience. So I get what you're saying, definitely.
yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. Well, like I say, thank you for joining me, my friend. What can
Yeah,
people
you're welcome.
expect from you in the next few months?
A shitloads of announcements. I'm gonna announce a lot of things that I cannot really say, but we'll probably tell you after.
Hmm.
Because I don't want to announce things that like still not 100% sure or whatever.
Yeah,
But there's like a lot of shows, a lot of big festivals, a lot of music. So yeah, well, a lot of things. So
sweet. And everyone can follow you at Renato S on social.
DJ Renato underscore S usually for all
Okay,
my socials. But when you find Renato S on Google, whatever, you'll figure it out.
awesome. Thank you for joining me, man.
Cheers, man. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me. It was really nice to talk to you and take care. All the best.
Thank you, mate. See you soon.